review for the final. We're going to do 4 problems tonight for the final. This is the review for final. All right, so number 5 is going to say for the function and these problems are already out there under final practice, under the content. This one says find the range. Now you have to remember what the range is. The range is the set of y values. Most of you remember that, but some of you are still having trouble with it. They give you a graph. Let's see, 3, -3, and 4, -2. So the graph looks like this. It connects down to this one, and then it has this little connect up. And notice all those little points are solid. So you don't have to use a parentheses anywhere. They do want you to put it in interval notation. When you're finding range, they go from the bottom to the top. And you want to put in the ordered pairs so you'll know what those are. And we're going to use the y values. All right, so this point over here is -4, 4. This point is 3, -3. And this point is 4, -2. So I'm working on the range. So I'm just going to forget the x's, and you might have to do that to keep yourself from writing the x's down, because you only want the range problems, the y values. So go from the bottom to the top. So if I'm going down here at the bottom, this is the bottom point of this graph. And the y value there on the bottom, the lowest y, is -3. Do you see that? And the highest y is going to be up here. The highest y is 4. So in interval notation, I would be going from -3 to 4. Any questions about that? That's number 5. Number 6.
So we don't do anything with the -2?
No, but that's a great question. Why wouldn't we do something with -2? That's a great question.
It's included in the range between -3 and 4.
See, I'm going from bottom to top.
That makes sense.
So that 2 is included in that group. If I were doing the domain, I would use that point. Okay, but I'm doing the range. So I'm going from bottom, which is -3, and -2 is included there. It's in there, up to 4. Okay. Any other questions? All right, number 6 says match the inequality. Okay, they're going to give us some graphs to match them with, and they start with 8x minus 7y is greater than -3. So it'll be a problem like this. It will not be solved for y. You'll have to first do that. You're going to have to solve for y first. Remember that if you divide by a negative number, what happens?
Sign changes.
You flip that inequality. If you don't flip that inequality, you're going to get the wrong area. So I'm going to subtract my 8x from both sides. And I'm going to have negative 7y is greater than negative 8x minus 3. Okay? Now I'm going to divide everything by negative 7. Now, what's going to happen to that inequality when I do that?
On flip.
It's going to flip. I'm going to have 8/7 x plus 3/7 because a negative divided by a negative is going to make that positive. Now, we would graph this by slope and y-intercept if it was easy to graph that way, but because we have fractions there, this graph is not so easy to graph. So we want to graph the boundary line and that boundary line is y is equal to 8/7 x plus 3/7. I've got to remember that this less than tells me that the boundary line is dashed because it says less than and not less than or equal to. And it also means that I'm going to shade below the boundary line. That's what that less than means. I'm going to shade below the boundary line. Well, this graph is not so easy to do because it's got the fractions in it. So what I'm going to do is graph it on my graphing calculator. And because it has fractions, and my calculator doesn't like for me to put fractions in it unless I do the special fraction thing, that's too much time for me, so I don't do it. And I'm going to put a parentheses, 8 divided by 7, to tell the calculator it's a fraction. Put my x in there. Don't put your x inside the parentheses. Make sure it's outside. Plus parentheses 3 divided by 7. So it's telling my calculator that I've got an 8/7 x plus 3/7. And then I'm going to graph it. I've been playing with my calculator, so I think I'm going to have to go to Zoom and Standard to get my 10 by 10 thing there. Yep, gives me the same picture. Now I'm going to go to table because the table's going to give me some nice numbers. If I look down my table, I see a 4, 5 down there. That's a nice number. So I'm going to pick that one, 4, 5. And I think there's another number up here that's pretty nice. A -3 looks like a pretty nice number. I don't want to graph all those decimal numbers, but if I put it on my calculator, I can find at least 2 places that the points are nice. So I've got 4, 5, and -3, -3. Those are what I'm going to graph. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5, -3, -3. And I remember I want my boundary line to be dashed. And I'm going to shade below the dash line. So that's my picture. Now, what they are going to ask you to do is find the picture. So this is what it looks like on your actual test. You'll have an A that looks like this, a B that looks like this, a C that looks like this, a D that looks like this. And all of these have dashed boundary lines, but you also have to watch because sometimes they'll put a solid boundary line in there and you'll get tripped up. You'll have to just watch for that. So my answer would be D. It looks like the one that I did. Any questions on that? Okay. Let's do number 7. Number 7 is one of your favorite problems. Let's see if you know what it's going to be. Do you remember these problems?
Oh no, the ladder. I'm just joking.
Oh
No, I don't
it's
like
the
them either.
ladder.
I can't stand them.
It says the ladder is resting against the wall. It always is. The top of the ladder touches the wall at a height of 12 feet. Find the length of the ladder if the length,
I'm here,
who is that?
Lori.
Okay, Lori, glad you're here. I see Shonda's here too. Let's see, find the length of the ladder if the length is 4 feet more than the distance from the wall. Now, this one's a little bit different than the ones we had in your exercises, but it's the same kind of problem, and you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. Remember that one? Anybody tell me what it is?
A squared plus B squared equals C squared.
That's correct. So now I'm going to draw a picture. This is my little ladder thing right here. It's always leaning against that wall. And it says the top of the ladder touches the wall at a height of 12 feet. So you're going to have some number right here that's going to go on this wall right here. It might be 12, it might be 8, it might be 17, but it's going to be some number that comes down and goes right there on that spot. It says find the length of the ladder if the length is 4 more than the distance from the wall. Notice how distance from the wall is last. So you let x equal the distance from the wall. That's down here. Last time, I think all of our problems had an x and then an x plus something, and they gave us the ladder. Ask a different question than this one is. So we're letting x be the distance from the wall. Now then, we've got to find how long the ladder is. Find the length of the ladder. That's what we want to do. We want to find that length of the ladder. If the length is 4 more than the distance from the wall. So the ladder is going to be 4 more than the distance from the wall. That's going to be x plus 4. Does everybody understand that? We good?
Yes.
Okay. So now all you have to do is plug it in. Remember, your right angle's right here. So this is your C. That's your hypotenuse across there. So it's going to say x squared plus 12 squared equals x plus 4 in a parenthesis squared. That's what our problem is going to say. So now we have x squared plus 144 equals x plus 4 times x plus 4. And I need to multiply that out. That's going to be x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16 because I'm doing first, outer, inner, last. Now I could combine these two right here. I'm going to take a step and do that because I neglected to do that. I was not doing that before, and some people got confused because they didn't understand where that a came from. So 8x is that 4x plus 4x combined together. Now then, I'm ready to solve it. Normally, I would set it equal to 0, But when I sit back and look at it, I see that when I subtract this x squared from this side and this side, those x squares go away. See that? So I don't have x squares. I just have an x, an 8x in this case. So I'm going to subtract the 16 from both sides. So 144 minus 16 is 128, and that is 8x. So if I divide out the 8, then I get 16 equals x. Now, 16 is going to be one of your answers that's across the bottom, but that's not the answer to the problem. Why not?
Because you have to add 4.
You have to add 4 because you want the ladder. And the ladder says you take x and add 4. So our ladder is going to be 16 plus 4, which is 20. So the ladder is actually 20 feet tall. So be careful on that because that 16 will for sure be one of your choices on the bottom. Okay, any questions on that particular problem? I can promise you it's going to look just like this. The only difference is they're going to have some number that's going to be maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe 7. This is going to be some number 15 or so. Your x is going to go here. It's going to look just like this problem. Okay, any questions on it? All right, let's look at number 8. Number 8 says find the domain. Write in interval notation. And they give you this problem. Okay, can anybody remember what name we gave this kind of function? Right at the very beginning of class, we named all the different kinds of functions. There were parabolas and cubics and quartics. Now we have quartics. We've got absolute values. What else did we have? We had lines. We had several different kinds of functions. What was the name for this kind? Does anybody remember?
Was it rational?
That's very good. It was a rational function. So this is a rational function. Rational functions are those funny looking ones. Remember, they kind of look like this. They have a split in them. This even has more than that. It has 2 splits and a little curve, but they have a spot that's undefined, and sometimes they have 2 spots that's undefined. Sometimes they have a tendency to look like this one does, and there's 2 places in that that's undefined. So what we have to do is find those places that's undefined because there's a rule that says you can't have a 0 in the denominator. So the way you set this up is you take your denominator, the x squared plus 7x, and you set it not equal to 0. Factor out an x. Set each one of these little things not equal to 0. So x cannot equal to 0. And x cannot equal to -7. So there's my answer right there, but I have to put it in interval notation. Sometimes it helps to draw a graph. So here's your 0, and here's your -7, and it can't be a -7, and it can't be 0, but it can be anything on this side of 7, and anything in between, and anything that's on that side of 0. So then what you want to do is write this in interval notation, and I notice that several of you missed these interval notations. So I want to be careful today to make sure that we go back over this. It's left to right. So you're coming in on this side. What do you see first?
Negative infinity.
Negative infinity, and it's going to go and go and go till it gets here to -7. And it's not going to include -7, so I put a parentheses. Then I'm going to put a union symbol in between here, and it's going to start back up at -7, but it's not going to include -7. And it's going to go all the way until you get to 0, right in here. And then it's going to stop. And then it's going to start again at 0 and go to positive infinity. So that's the way you want that answer to look. Any questions on that? Got it? Okay. Let's do our poll today. I think we've got most everybody in. And this, I'm running out of questions to ask. So here we go. Here's a fun question. Are you planning a vacation trip this year? Yes, no, or maybe. And while we're doing that, I'm going to see who's here that I have missed. Is Selena here? Amanda?
Yes, ma'am, I made it.
Margaret? Squila? Portia? Kiera? Donovan? Danielle? Billy? Okay.
I'm here.
Who's that?
Oh, this Donovan.
Oh, Donovan. Okay, Donovan, I missed you somehow.
Okay.
Got you marked.
Okay, thank you.
All right, let's see. Some people, 53% are planning a vacation, and some people just don't know. 20% don't know. All right, one of you that's going somewhere, tell us where you're going. Half of you are going
I'm-
somewhere. Where are you going?
I'm going to see my dad in Michigan.
Well, are you going in the summer when it's nice and not 20 degrees to below 0 up there?
I kind of wish I could have went when it was cold because I've never experienced that type of cold, but yeah, it'll be this summer.
It's really cold up there, the winter. Okay, somebody else want to share where you're going?
I'm going to Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon after finals.
Bryce Canyon's a gorgeous place.
It looks beautiful. So I'm trying to do extra walks and steps to start preparing.
Yeah, you need to do that. It's
Yeah.
you'll be
I'm gonna
sore
be-
the first day if you don't.
Well, if it ever stops raining, I'll go to Pinnacle and stuff, but it just rains all the time. It's dangerous.
One of my friends posted a giant snake that was on Pinnacle last weekend, so be careful if you go to Pinnacle.
Yeah, wow.
Big old snake, and his mouth was open. I can't believe you got the picture. But
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
everybody being inside, all the wildlife's returning back to where it normally is.
Yep. I don't like snakes, and so you have to be real cautious when you're out there. My sister-in-law said she's killed 4 so far this year.
Oh my gosh.
Be careful when y'all are out this weekend to be aware of your surroundings.
Miss
All right.
Sullivan, I know you know about Sylvester the cat. You
Yes.
know, so you know how if he was always scared, he'll turn all the way white and fall apart.
I
That's
know.
me around the snake.
Oh, I'm picturing that. Yes. I don't like snakes at all. I used to work at Newport, Arkansas, and this time of year there were snakes everywhere. I used to take a broom and sweep those stupid ground rattlers out of the hallways in
Oh
the
my
mornings. My job was
Oh.
to sweep those ground rattlers out this time of year, and I'd call the maintenance people over and they'd usually kill them, but I'd take my broom and sweep them out. They'd get in the corners of the wall and the floor, and it was horrible, just horrible.
Wow.
Big old snake in my laundry room one time. It's just, I don't like snakes. I can just tell you horrible stories about snakes. I bet you guys can too. All right, let's do 8.3. I think that you might like it.
Hey, did I miss one of the final questions? I'm missing a 7.
You're missing 7? How did you miss 7? It's your favorite problem, Brooke.
I'm just kidding. I think I numbered it wrong. Okay, I found it. Just kidding.
It's the ladder problem. Did you get it? And these are out
Yes,
there.
I got it.
Okay,
I got it.
those are posted. If you miss one or lose one, those are posted out there under content. It says review for final. All right, let's talk about 8.3. We're going to do the support section first, but they both use the same thing: synthetic division. Synthetic division, I don't know if any of you remember this or not. This is a method for performing division of polynomials with less writing and fewer calculations. That was its definition I found. Then in long division. Do you remember long division from 5th grade?
No.
Where you have to
Yes,
divide
I do.
24 into 4,792. Do y'all remember doing that? You had to put a number up here, multiply it with 24, put it under here, subtract it, bring down, divide, put it up here, multiply. Do you remember all doing all that from long division?
Yes.
And you get an answer up here, and the answer is called the quotient. Do y'all remember that? That's
Yes.
the answer. This number under here is called the dividend. And this number out here is called the divisor. And sometimes when you did all those calculations, you got a number down here. Do you remember what it was called?
Remainder.
The remainder. And sometimes you put R4 or R7. And sometimes you used your remainder and put it over your divisor. Do you remember that? So if you had a remainder of, say, 7, sometimes you would write it R7, and sometimes you would write it as 7/24. Do you remember that? So sometimes you can write it as a fraction with the remainder over the divisor. And sometimes you just write an R or remainder or something that says R7. Well, we're going to do both of those today when we're doing polynomials as well. The difference is that we only use the coefficients, and all of you know what a coefficient is from the other day. The coefficients of the dividend. We don't have to do all those x cubes and x squares and x to the fifths. And in this first section, you take the opposite of the constant in the divisor. And I'm going to show you what that means in just a minute. Okay, the other rule is the quotient which is the answer, will be 1 less than the dividend. 1 less power. Let's put 1 less power than the dividend. So if your dividend was 3, so x cubed, then your quotient's going to be x squared. If the dividend starts with x to the 5th, then your quotient's going to be x to the 4th. It's going to be 1 less. The big thing that you have to make sure is make sure the dividend is in descending order and no terms skipped. So if it goes from x cubed down to x, then it's missing an x squared term, and you have to put a 0x squared term in there. So we know that we're only going to use the coefficients of the dividend. We're going to take the opposite of the number that's in the divisor. We're going to, in the answer will be 1 less power than whatever the dividend was. And we're going to make sure the dividend is in descending order and there's no skip terms before we start it. Okay? Let's see what this looks like. This is actually your example 4 from your homework. And it has 3x to the 4th minus 8x to the 2nd minus 16 divided by x minus 2. Looks like that. So let's kind of check through our checklist here. It says only use the coefficients of the dividend, take the opposite of the constant, make sure it's in descending order, make sure there's no skipped terms. All right, do we have any skipped terms?
Yes.
Yes, which one skipped?
Cubic.
So we want to put in 0x cubed. So I'm going to rewrite it. 3x to the 4th plus 0x cubed minus 8x squared minus 16 divided by x minus 2. Okay, now this is where I want to draw a little box right here. And in my little box is where I take the opposite. This is negative 2, so what I'm going to put in there is positive 2. Okay? You take the opposite of the constant. Negative 2, I put in positive 2 in my little box. Now, out here, I'm going to put the coefficients. Now that I have all the ones in order, I'm not putting the x to the 4th. I'm just going to put a 3. And then I'm going to put a 0. And then I'm going to put a negative 8. And then I'm going to put a negative 16. Already it's looking easier. All right. So I'm going to skip a line and put my line underneath here because I'm going to do something with numbers right in here. The first one you bring down. So you just bring down 3. Bring down first number. Just bring it down. Now then, this is where you have to be careful. You multiply the 2 times the 3, and you put your answer right there. 2 times 3 is 6. See how I put my answer right there in that second spot? Now I'm going to combine these terms, 0 and 6. 0 plus 6 is 6. Now I'm going to take my 2 and I'm going to multiply it by the 6, and I'm going to put my answer right there. 2 times 6 is 12. Goes underneath the negative 8. So 12 that's positive and 8 that's negative is the 4. Now I'm going to take my 2 and I'm going to multiply it by this 4, and I'm going to put my answer right there. Okay. 4. I have something wrong. There's an error. Whoever finds it gets a point. It is right there.
Are we missing X to the first?
Yes, we are missing X to the first. So I need to add a 0 X to the first, which means there's going to be a 0 there. So now then, I've got 3, negative 8, 0. So I still have 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. 8 should go there. So now I have an 8, and then I do 2 times 8 is 16, and I have a 0. This last thing that's here is called the remainder. Brooke, I'm going to give you a point. Okay? So, it kind of looks like a mess, but we have an answer of 3, 6, 4, and 8, and a remainder of 0. This is really special. If you can get a 0 on the end, that's a special deal because it means that 2 is a 0 of the function. I know that it's 2 because it's this number over here. And if it's 2 is a 0 of the function if this remainder is 0. Now let's see if we can tell what our quotient is. We have a 3, a 6, a 4, and an 8. That 0 is a remainder. So I have a 3, a 6, and a 4, and an 8. I started with x to the 4th. In our rules, it says the quotient will be 1 less power than the dividend. So
it'd be 3x cubed
good. 3x cubed
and
plus 6x what?
Squared
plus
4x plus 8.
4x plus 8. And that's my answer. How about that? Any questions about, we got to remember not to skip any of them. After I said it, I got here and I thought, wait a minute, I'm not going to get a 0 on the end. This is supposed to be a 0 of the function. How come I'm not getting a 0? So then I had to step back and look and realize I skipped that 0x. Did anybody see it when we were putting in the 0x cubed?
I guess I really didn't pay attention because I saw the 16. But it doesn't have an X on it, so that makes sense.
Okay, so y'all remember that. All right, we're going to work some of these problems and see if we can do them. this from the set, and then we'll do the college algebra set that uses the synthetic division in a different way. Okay, we've done number 4. This is number 1. Use synthetic division to find the function value. Whoops, wrong group. Hang on a second. Use synthetic division to divide. And they give us b cubed minus 9b squared plus 60b minus 21 divided by b minus 5. All right, somebody tell me what I put in my little box over here.
Positive 5.
5.
5. Now let's be careful and check. We've got a 3, a 2, a 1, and a number. So I don't have any skipped. So right here, there's a 1 understood in front of that b cubed. So my coefficient is 1, negative 9, 60, negative 21. Draw your line. Remember the first term we bring down? Okay, now then how do you start the process? What do you do?
5 times 1.
5 times 1. 5 times 1 is 5, and I put the answer right underneath that negative 9. So I get negative 4. Then I do 5 times negative 4 is negative 20. And I subtract and I get 40. Then 5 times 40 is 200. And I subtract and I get 179. And I always draw a little box on this side because this is my remainder. So 5 is not a 0 of the function because I didn't get a 0 on the end down there. Okay, now I've got to figure out what I've got. If this started b cubed, then what does this one have to be?
B squared.
Huh? B squared minus 4b plus 40. And for this section, they just do write the remainder with an R. Remainder 179.
So if the constant is not a 0 of the function, that's when you write the remainder.
Yes.
Okay.
You don't have to put R0 if it's 0, but if it's any other number besides 0, they'll ask you to write it in some form, either with an R, or you could put 179 over b minus 5 if they ask for that. I think all of these are multiple choice, so you'll see which way they want it written.
Okay.
Okay, let's do number 2. Same thing. We've got 2c cubed plus 15c squared plus 24c minus 14 divided by c plus 5. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So I didn't skip any. I'm good there. What goes in my little box this time?
Negative 5.
Negative 5. So we have 2, 15, 24, negative 14. So bring down the 2. And 2 times negative 5 is negative 10, goes right there. This is a lot easier than long division for sure. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. So I have a negative 1 when I combine those. negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. So it looks like my remainder is negative 9. So I have 2c to the what?
Squared.
Plus 5c minus 1. And they said just put your remainder in as an R. Okay. Any questions so far? Are we good? All right,
Hold
let's-
on, I was still writing it down. I'm almost finished. I just missed the last two numbers.
It's all right. Did Selena come in while we're waiting? Or Margaret? Shaquila? Portia?
Margaret is here.
Okay, Margaret, thank you. Portia? Kiara? Danielle? Okay. All right, you get it, Chandra? Was that you?
Yes, I did.
Okay. All right, let's look at number 3. Number 3 says divide, just like those others. A cubed minus 9a squared plus 3 divided by a minus 5. Okay. Now in my little box, I put what?
5.
5. Now something's wrong with this dividend. 3
You need an x to the first or a to the first.
a cubed minus 9a squared plus 0a plus 3. So I need to be sure to put the 0 in there or I won't get the right answer. 1, negative 9, 0, 3. Bring down the first one. We have 5, which gives us negative 4. Negative 20, and 0 is negative 20. 5 times negative 20 is negative 100. Looks like we have a negative 97 for our remainder. And this time they want us to write it as a fraction. Write remainder as a fraction. So we're going to do 1a squared minus 4a minus 20. And then you put plus, and they put the negative up here with the 97 over your divisor, which is a minus 5. This is your divisor. So you'll have to put it underneath there for your fraction when they want a fraction. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, we did 4. We did that as our example. Let's do 5.
So I have a question about that one. So when they ask us to write it as a fraction, it'll always be plus whatever the fraction is?
Yes.
Or will it be, okay.
Now, sometimes, honestly, they'll put a minus here, but all the ones that I saw, they put a plus and put the minus up there with the number. So just be aware they could just make a minus in between there. I didn't see any that had that answer. They all had plus and negative. So just watch it. If it counts it wrong, then change it to minus there and see if it'll take that. But I looked at several of them to see if they were going to do that, and they all put plus and negative. But it'll be this number 3 that happens on. Okay, let's look at number 5. Number 5 is 4s to the 4th minus 20s to the 3rd plus 62s plus 16 divided by s minus 4. And it looks like we do have a term missing. What's missing?
S squared.
It's missing an s squared. So we'll have to put it in there. 4s to the 4th minus 20s to the 3rd plus 0s to the 2nd plus 62s plus 16. All right, what do we put in our box?
4.
4. So we have 4, negative 20, 0, 62, 16. Bring down the first one. And now 4 times 4 is 16. So you have negative 4. 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus 0 is negative 16. 4 times 16 is negative 64. It's like we have a negative 2 when we subtract those. And 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. So it looks like our remainder is 8. And this time they even do something different for the remainder. This is going to be 4s to the, let's see, it started at the 4th, so it's the 3rd, minus 4s to the 2nd, minus 16s, minus 2. This time what they do is put a comma and put r of s is equal to 8. But again, this is a multiple choice answer. The R stands for remainder. And so that's another way that they have chosen to write it. But that's a multiple choice answer. You're just looking for the right numbers here and then the right remainder.
Why can't they make it easier and just choose a way that they want it?
That's a great question. I don't really know an answer to that. I'm thinking. I know that sometimes they write it as a fraction because it makes a decimal when you're using real numbers, and it makes a decimal point with some, that's why they write it as a fraction on those with numbers. On these, I'm not sure why, because I know in calculus when we use these, they just throw that fraction away. If there's a number like this, they just throw it away when they're doing calculus, when you're doing calculus. Okay, let's do one more. And then we're going to do the college algebra side, which uses synthetic division, but it does a little bit differently. X cubed minus 2x squared minus 4 divided by x plus 2. We do have some terms missing. Let's see. Looks like we're missing cube, squared. Looks like we're missing an x term. So x cubed minus 2x squared plus 0x minus 4 divided by x plus 2. Okay, what goes in our box?
-2.
And you have 1x cubed, negative 2x squared, 0x, negative 4. Negative 2 times 1 is negative 2. That's going to give me negative 4. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. 8 plus 0 is 8. Negative 2 times 8 is negative 16. So it looks like we get a negative 20 for our remainder. And I have x squared minus 4x plus 8. And this time they do something different. They write out the word remainder, negative 20, and just write the whole thing out. I do want to tell you that this number and this number make a point on the graph. When you graph these, negative 2, negative 20 is a point on the graph of the problem that you're doing. 5, negative 97 is a point. 4, 8 is a point on that one. So these will make points, and we'll do that, I think, for this test. 5, 179 is a point. Negative 5, negative 9 is a point. So whatever is that in that remainder makes the y value of the point along with that one that's in the box. All right, there's only 6, I think. No, there's more. 7. Let's do 7. Number 7 says x to the 5th plus x to the 3rd minus x divided by x minus 3. And it looks like we are missing some terms on this one. So let's see, 5, we're missing an x to the 4th and an x to the 2nd and a constant on this one. It doesn't have a number on the end. So we're going to have to do x to the 5th plus 0x to the 4th plus x to the 3rd plus 0x to the 2nd minus x plus 0. We have to have a placeholder right there. Divided by x minus 3. It has to have the constant on it. This is the first one that we're missing the constant on. Okay, in your box goes 3. So you have 1, 0, 1, 0, negative 1, 0. That's pretty interesting. Okay, so you have 1. 3 times 1 is 3. 3 plus 0 is 3. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. 3 times 10 is 30. 30 plus 0 is 30. 3 times 30 is 90. 90 minus 1 is 89. 3 times 89 is,
267.
thank you, 267. So 267 plus 0 is 267. There's my remainder. Let's see what we've got here. We started with an x to the 5th. So we have a 1x to the 4th plus 3x to the 3rd plus 10x to the 2nd plus 30x plus 89. And this time they do r of x, remainder of x is 267. And the point 3, 267 is on the graph. Okay, let's do one more, so make sure you can do all of them for your homework and won't have any problems with them. This is c to the 4th minus 625. This is a special one. This is number 8, by the way. This is one you're going to see several times again. Divided by c minus 5. Looks like we're missing a c to the 3rd, a c to the 2nd, a c to the 1st. Missing all those in the middle there. So c to the 4th plus 0 c to the 3rd plus 0c to the second plus 0c minus 625. So I take the opposite. So I put 5 in my little box. I have 1, 0, 0, 0, negative 625. Bring down the 1. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 plus 0 is 5. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 plus 0 is 25. 5 times 25 is 125. 125 plus 0 is 125. 5 times 125. Oh, this one's nice. Look at that. That means that 5 is a 0 of the function. And the point 5, 0 is on the graph. Okay, let's see what we have here. We started with c to the 4th, c to the 3rd, plus 5c to the 2nd, plus 25c, plus 125.
I have a question back on number 7. I'm sorry.
It's okay. What's your question on 7?
At the end of our quotient, we put plus 89, but it's minus x up in the thing. So I didn't know, are we taking the plus from the 0 and not doing the minus from the x?
Right here?
Yes.
Well, 3 times 30 was a positive 90. And when I combine these two together, I have to do a positive 90 and a negative 1. That makes a positive 89.
Okay, and that's what we bring down. It doesn't matter that the x up there and the
No,
that's negative.
this is this negative 1 that's
Okay.
right there.
Okay.
But because 90's bigger, when you subtract them, you take that larger sign. That's a good question.
So whatever we're doing, like in the parentheses, because you know how it'll have like positives and negatives, like in the parentheses when we write the problem.
Yes, you take the opposite. You're talking about these right here?
Yes, and then the other, like, because at first I got confused because you know, like when you're dividing, you're always like seeing what the divisor, if the divisor can go into the dividend, and then you're subtracting. That's what
That's
got
what
me
you're
into
doing. Actually, you know, I could just take this and go like this. And this is the divisor and this is the dividend. And up here it's going to be your quotient. It just happens to be down here.
Okay, because yeah, I got confused because we were adding.
Yeah,
when
yeah,
we
you
do
don't ever,
group,
you know, like when you do long division, you subtract. You don't ever do
right.
that in this. You just combine the
Okay,
long
okay.
terms.
Okay.
That's a great question too. Yep. Okay. I think we did all of them.
Number 2 is a good example because if y'all look at it, you'll see it say 2c squared plus 5c minus 1. That's where we subtracted the 1 versus adding.
Right.
Right here.
On 2. Yeah, you see like our
You know,
answer
you
was
got a
2c
negative
squared.
1.
Right. So that means we subtracted.
Yes, because the signs were different. We had to do that here too.
No, I was talking about in the answer because she was asking where do we get the
And down
plus
here in
from.
the answer.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was just saying that that's a good example of where we subtract.
Yeah, this plus 89 is because that's a positive 89 right there, makes it plus 89 down there.
Yes,
Right.
that helps a lot. Thank you both.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Thanks for sharing. Any other comments? Okay, now get that in your brain that it's in the form when you have this little binomial here, that you take the opposite to go in here. But you know what? You can do the same thing, and it's called find the value of the function. It doesn't say divide. It says find the value of the function. You can use the same process for doing that. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to find the value of the function. All the support group does this. They do the long division. They do the division. When you get to the college algebra section, the directions are different, and you have to be careful to not take the opposite sign because it's not written in that binomial form. Let me show you what this looks like. This is synthetic division, but we're doing something different. It says use synthetic division to find the function value. Now, we've been doing the function values. Can do it. All we have to do is plug in. But now they want us to do it with some synthetic division. So we have x cubed minus 14x squared plus 59x minus 70. And they want us to find, this is the way to look, f of 2, f of negative 5, f of 7. That's 3 different problems. Now, before we have done this problem, and we would take the 2 and we'd put it in here for x, and we'd say 2 cubed minus 14 times 2 squared plus 59 times 2 minus 70. But now they want us to do it with synthetic division. When you do this and you're finding the function value, do not change the sign. We're so used to changing the sign because they were in the form c minus 5. See how the difference, the way it's written? This is your divisor here, c minus 5. We changed the sign to go here. But these are finding the function value, f of x, in each case. So you don't change the sign when it's like this, but you do when it's written as a binomial. So don't get those two mixed up. There are two different reasons why you do that. So this time we aren't changing the sign. We're going to put the 2 in there. We're going to check to make sure there's no skipped values, and there aren't. 1x cubed minus 14x squared, 59x minus 70. Same process, no different. The only difference so far is because they're asking us to find the value of the function at 2. We didn't change the sign. That's the only difference. Everything else is the same. 1 times 2 is 2, negative 12. Negative 12 times 2 is negative 24. I think that's 35. And that's 70. And look, we get a 0. So 2 is a 0 of the function. And the point that it will make, let's do this part, f of 2 is equal to 0. It's whatever you get for your remainder, and it will make the point to 0. And I've only done this one. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to put in negative 5. Notice I'm not changing the sign because this is asking me to find the function value. I would have gotten 0 if I'd have put 2 in there and cubed it, 2 in here and squared it, multiplied by 14, 2 multiplied by 59, subtract 70. I would have gotten a 0 there too. It's just a different way of doing it, and it's a little faster. 1, negative 14, 59, negative 70. Bring down your first one. You have negative 5. So you get negative 19. And 5 times negative 19 is 95. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you get 154. And 154 times 5 is 770. And it's negative because negative 5 times 154 is negative. Then I add those because the signs are the same. So I have negative 840. That's definitely not a zero of the function. So my f of negative 5 is negative 840, which makes the point negative 5, negative 840. And I've done that one. Now I've got to do f of 7. Notice I'm not changing the sign because it's not in that binomial form. 1, negative 14, 59, negative 70. Okay, you can bring it down. And 1 times 7 is 7. Give you a negative 7. Gives you a negative 49. A 10. Oh, and look. This one is a 0. So 7 is a 0 of the function. So f of 7 is going to be 0, which makes the point 7, 0. Now, on the directions, it says, check your answers by graphing. So I'm going to put this in here and show you what that means. X cubed minus 14x squared plus 59x minus 70. I'm going to graph it, and I really don't care if I can see my graph or not, because what I really want are the values. So I'm going to do second in table, and I'm going to find 2, the ones that they asked us to put in. 2. Look, 2 is 0. You can see it right there on the graph. Right there. 2, 0. And negative 5, let's go up to negative 5. Negative 5 is negative 840. And 7 is 0. So I can check it by putting it on my calculator and go into the table to see that I'm right. It'll double check you on your homework. Any questions on that?
No.
All right, let's do number 2.
Everybody want to play? Understand? I'm done. Did Jersey eat?
You what?
Did Jersey eat?
Grilled cheese.
Brooke, you're not silenced.
Sorry.
That's okay. Use synthetic division to find the value. And they give us f of x equals x to the 4th minus x to the 3rd minus 11x to the 2nd plus 44x minus 24. And they want us to find f of 4. They didn't give us 3 this time. They just gave us 1. So notice I'm not changing the sign on it. 1x to the 4th, negative 1x to the 3rd, negative 11x to the 2nd, 44x minus 24. I bring it down, and I have 3, and 3 times 4 is 12, and 4 is 48, and 192. 192 and negative 24 is 8. 168. So f of 4 equals 168. That's what they want. Okay. Let's do number 3. Number 3, it says they're going to give you -3 and 2, and f of x equals 2x cubed plus x squared minus 9x plus 18. And they want to know if there's zeros of the function. So if they want to know if there's zeros of the function, what we're looking for is to see if our remainder is 0. If the remainder is 0, the answer is yes. And if the remainder is not 0, the answer is no. We could do the same thing by putting these in here for x and see what you get when you do all that. But I think it's a little easier. Notice this is not in that binomial form, so we're not changing the sign. 2, 1, -9, and 18. Let's see what we get. 2, -6. That would be -5. 15. 6. 18, that's negative, and then you do get 0. So you say yes, -3 is a 0 of the function. Okay,
And we're only doing the x value right there,
you're
the
only
-3.
we only did the -3. I still have to do this one.
We still have to do 2, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's asking for both of them, so I still have to do 2. I'm betting 2 is going to be no, since the first one was yes. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 and -9 is 1. Looks like I get a 20 on this one. So no, 2 is not a 0 of the function, because my remainder was 20 and not 0. Okay. Any questions on that one? All right. Let's look at number 3 and see what new trick they're going to do for us. You have a -2 and a 1 on the outside here, and they give you h of x equals x to the 4th plus 3x cubed plus 2x squared minus 6x minus 12. And again, they want to know whether there are zeros. Okay. -2. Are y'all bored with this yet? Is it too easy? It's pretty easy.
I don't mind an easy night.
Especially not with this weekend.
Yeah, I thought this might be. I started to do this one and the first part of the next section, and I said, which is easy, it's just multiplication. But I said, oh, I bet they're going to have a busy weekend this weekend. Let's not do that. So we have 1, -2 would be 0. 0, -6, +12. Looks like we got a 0 here. Put yes on this one. Somebody not muted. I don't know who it is. Okay, thank you. I tell you, this pollen is getting to my nose. You can tell I'm stopped up tonight. 4 times 1 is 4. 6. 6 0. There's a 0, but it's not where I need it. 0, and so I get 12. It's negative, so this answer is no. And let's see, number 4. Okay, let's do this last one, and I guess we'll be done. Determine, oh, this one's a hard one. I remember this one. This one is determine whether -3/2 is a 0. And they give you a fraction, so there's 2 ways to do it. We're going to do it by just keeping the fraction on it first. You have x cubed plus 1/2 x squared plus 9/2 x minus 5/2. We're going to do it with the fractions in it first. So I'm going to put -3/2 over here. And notice I don't change the sign because it's not in that binomial form. 1x cubed, 1/2 x squared, 9/2 x, -5/2. All right, let's deal with these fractions and see what we get. -3/2 and +1/2 is -2/2, which is -1. So -1 times 3/2 is +3/2 because a negative times a negative is a positive. So we have 9, 10, 11, 12, 12/2, which is 6. Okay, now then, I may need to come over here on the side and multiply this one. That looks like -18/2, and -18/2 is -9, but I might as well leave it 18/2 because I've got that 5/2 up there, which is -23/2. So the answer to this is no. But if you want to, since you're only doing yes or no, and all you're looking at is this remainder, you can change these to decimals and do it on your calculator if you want to, by changing your -3/2 to -1.5, and changing your 1/2 to 0.5, and your 9/2 to 4.5, and your -5/2 to -2.5, and then you can do it in your calculator, and it's not quite so bad. So bring down the 1, and 1 times that would be -1.5, and -1.5 and 0.5 is -1. 1 times that is +1.5. 4.5 and 1.5 is 6.0. 6.0 times -1.5 is -9.0, and -9.0 and -2.5 is -11.5. So either way you do it, and 23/2 is the same as 11.5. Either way you do it, your answer is going to be no, because that last remainder is not a 0. So it's not a 0 of the function. Okay. How is it? Are we good?
Yes, ma'am.
Not so bad tonight. It's the same thing over and over and over. The only difference between the two sections is the first one is in that form that has the binomial, and you have to change the sign. It's like this, and you have to change it to a +4 to go in here. In the second part, the college algebra part, they're asking for the value of the function, so you don't change the sign. you leave it the same. If you can keep that straight, then you should do fine on the assignment. Okay, any questions? Let me see, did Selena ever come in? Or Sequela, Portia, Kiera, Danielle, Billy. Any of those folks ever show up? Okay, all right, guys. That is all I have for you tonight. We're going to get out just a tiny bit earlier. I hope you all have a great Easter and get to do something fun, and the weather's pretty, and so you have a great time for Easter. And stay up with this homework. Try to get it done before Saturday night with the holiday coming. Just make sure try to get it done before then. It's not too hard. So hopefully if you'll just be careful with your adding and subtracting, you won't have any trouble. If you do, just call me. I have a few people that contacted me this last part, and I don't mind at all. Tomorrow I am going to be at Crestwood all day. I'm taking a 5th grade math class all day tomorrow, but I will be home after 3 tomorrow, and I'll be here Saturday and Sunday. Sunday, of course, we'll have a house full, but they won't be here till 3, so I'll be available in the morning on Sunday if you need it. I'm not going to church yet, and I'll just watch it on TV.
All right. Thank you so much. I hope you have a good Easter too.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy Easter, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Happy Easter, everybody. Good night.
Happy Easter.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm glad I made it.
I'm glad you made it too.
I'm moving all my stuff in. I still have a little bit more to do, but I'm getting there.
Are you moving to a new apartment?
And a little room for rent. So yeah. But I'm getting there. So
Well,
we just have the other assignments to finish.
you're right. Right now it's 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3.
Yeah, I finished 8.1. I still need to do 8.2. So I'll get that done by Sunday.
8.2 is not so bad. It'll be okay.
Yeah. It's just the multiplicity, correct?
If you have any extra time, you can look at that multiplication that's in the next section. It's just
Okay.
multiplying. The only difference is, we multiplied x times 3 times x plus times 4, x plus in the binomial form.
Yeah.
These are just going to be the same thing, except they're going to be higher numbers. They're going to be
Okay.
x to the 5th plus x to the 3rd times
Okay. And
x
then
to
you
the
have to fill
2nd
in the
minus
numbers.
x to the 4th. So you still have to multiply them, but
Yeah.
the exponents are higher.
Okay. Well, enjoy your Easter and have a good time with your family.
Oh, I will. Thank you so
Okay.
much. I will.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Kiana, are you there?